Welcome to part 2 in our little mini series here of getting basically any character that we want into Unreal and getting some basic animation functionality, and specifically by the end of this, having a character that you want to be able to sit and stand within your level. This is part 2, so there is a previous part. If you're just coming to this organically, I'll put the link in the description below. What we're going to cover today is, first, we're going to fix a couple of bugs that were left over from the previous version that you may have found. One specifically is if we put multiple chairs in the level, then the character keeps warping back to the first chair. The second one is that because we're importing someone else's code, it's come along with a few other functions that you may or may not want. And specifically, the guy kind of runs slow unless you hold down the shift key, and then he speeds up. And then after that, then we'll go into the Miximo workflow. Last tutorial, we covered the characters that are built on the Unreal Engine default mannequin skeleton. And in this one, Miximo, as I talked about in that tutorial, Miximo has a very different skeleton, so the workflow is different and a little bit more involved. There isn't as much stuff out of the box, so we're going to have to rebuild some assets for the Miximo character, which is actually good because it'll give you an opportunity to learn a lot more about animation and things like that within Unreal. So I think it's going to be a good action-packed tutorial for you. And the last thing we're going to focus on together, because I'm going to let you in on the little joke, is I watched back a few of the tutorials that I created. Keep in mind, I've only been at this a month, and that includes Unreal, game development, and this whole YouTube thing. I watched back some of my videos and I realized that I say a lot. And when I was watching it, I was horrified and it was really annoying. So I'll let you in on that. I just said I'll let you in on that, and I'm going to really try through this tutorial series to kind of get that out of my vocabulary. So let's you can laugh at me as we go along, and maybe we can see if we can count the tallies of how many times I said it by the end. One. So here, let's just demo the two issues. One, so here you can tell the guy's running really slow. If I hold down the shift key, boom, he goes into a full sprint. So that's one. I've also got a chair asset on the block over there, and a chair asset built by this question mark. Yes, real life examples there. But you notice if I click on this chair asset, he all of a sudden teleports to the other one. So that is no good. So let's fix that. So the fix is actually in this blueprint. Again, we're reverse and repurposing somebody else's code. So let's understand what's happening there. So in this sit and stand up part of his code, his or her code, there's this little section here that we need to get rid of. Basically, it's saying get all actors of class and then chair BP. If you're following along from last time, chair BP is actually this blueprint asset. So get all of the actors in this class, and then store them in a list. In programming, I just said twice again. In programming, an array is basically equivalent to a list. So an array is just a list of objects, and they number those objects from 0 to whatever the total size of your array is. And so in this case, when we're getting all actors of class chair BP, if I have two of them out here, it's going to get chair BP 0, and then it's going to get chair BP 1. And then here it's saying in that array or that list that you've just gathered, get me the actor 0. So this functionality, when we're sitting every time, is actually just saying go and get me actor 0 and perform all the functionality in there. So when I go and sit here, it runs the code and says actually go and get the character to sit here, and that's why you see this warp happening. So we need to blow that away, and we'll recode that and make it a little better. A good way to do it, that's 3 ums by the way, a good way to do it is this event actor begin overlap. We're just going to grab this, and you can just right click event actor begin overlap, and you can bring that in. And what we're going to do is we're going to drag out this other actor promote to variable, because that's going to create an actor variable. You could have just created your own variable here separately. We did that in the last one, but that's the easiest way. And then we're going to call this overlapped. Boom, done. Okay, And then what we need to do is we need to then utilize that variable over here. And how we're going to do that is we are just going to cast this to chair BP. Boom, just like that. We are going to drag in our overlapped actor. Actually, you know what? The easiest way to do it is just grab this little guy down here and drag him in. We're going to get that overlapped actor. That's the same guy that we just set here on the event. And then, whoops. Then we're going to drag this chair BP and plug it back into this. This is how it was set up before. And plug this guy back into the play node. And then that's going to fix everything. So if we go now in and sit here, it'll sit. And now that that blueprint that we created last time, you'll be able to repurpose it all over the place. And maybe I should just demonstrate that he actually could sit in either one. Oops. Okay, yeah, good enough. You get it. Okay, so that fixes the first and primary problem. The other stuff is all of this add stamina garbage. We're just going to get rid of it because I don't like it. I don't want it in there. If you want it, keep it. So it's all this whole custom event is all stamina. Get rid of it all. I just selected it, delete the comment. Get rid of this guy. We don't want him. Bye. This run walk is the stuff that's really annoying and making us slow down. We're going to get rid of that. Begin play, add to v4. Yeah, this is the widget for the stamina. See you later. Bye-bye. What else do we have? Touch input is fine. Jump is fine. That's all good. So that should get rid of all that stamina junk. Oh, event tick. What's this? Sequence. Stamina is here. Set max speed. We do need the stand up and the sit. You know what, let's just leave that for now. So that'll just clean it up a little bit, and we'll move this up. It should fix the other problem. Boom. Let's compile, save. Yep, that's clean, and let's just see if that's now fixed our other problem. Yeah, there you go. Now when he's walking, he's just walking, and it doesn't do all that crazy stamina stuff, and he can sit in either chair. Obviously, like I've said a few times, you're going to want to play with the location of the chair to make it look a little better. I'm obviously sitting through, but I think I showed in the first tutorial how to do that a little bit, and but I don't want to spend time doing that the whole tutorial. So with that done, what do we have next? I guess we start on the Miximo flow. Okay, so we're going to move over to mixamo.com. I've already got an account here. It's completely free. It's through Adobe, so it's trusted. Lots of people use it if you're not familiar with it. It's got a ton of different character assets. I think like over 140, and tons of animations as well. So we're going to go get all these animations, and then we'll get them over to Unreal. Yeah, so let's get started on this. So we want this default character. I've already got them loaded up, but if you just search for Demon under characters, I was laughing at myself this morning when I was playing around with this at 2 in the morning the other day. I downloaded this and called everything Demon Lady. Everywhere that I moved this asset, I called Demon Lady. Clearly it's not a lady. I don't know what I was seeing. But that stuff happens late at night. Okay, so we're going to download this guy just in the T-pose. That's what we want as the default there. We want to get an idle animation. Whoops, I'm still in characters. So we want to click over here in animations, and we want to get an idle. What's a good idle for this guy? This one looks fine. His hands are moving a little bit, breathing. That looks good. We don't want it with the skin. We would have got the skin with our initial download there, I believe. So there's the idle animation. We're going to want to walk. So basically we're trying to replicate all of the animations that the default mannequin has. Let's just find a regular walk. That seems fine, but isn't that... Here. We want the blue one. The blue one's the male asset. We don't want him moving around either. You can use this animation if it's like a third-party character, but in this case where it's your main character, you want to keep that walking animation in place, and then Unreal handles the moving around. So we'll download that. We'll want to download a run animation with the same principle of keep it in place. So this guy's hoofing it. I like that one. In place. You can, there's settings on the walk animation and the running that you can play with. You can change the style and the speed and the arm space and that sort of stuff. Don't do it on this one. Let's keep it consistent, but come back and play with it. You can make some pretty cool custom looks and animations. We will download that. So we have an idle, walk, we have a run, and then we need all of our sit animations. So we need a sit, sitting idle. There we go. That'll work. We need a sit to stand. Sit to, there we go, sit to stand. Let's grab that one. And then we need a stand to sit as well. So we'll also grab stand to sit, which is also right there. Okay, so we've got our idle, walk, run, sitting idle, sit to stand, stand to sit, and then we also should just get a pack. So cool thing, you can individually pick those animations, or you can also get these packs. So they have a full page of packs here. And we're just going to look for, I have a standard movement locomotion pack, and it should have jumping and things in there. We could even get the action adventure. Do we want that? Yeah, let's just click. We'll click on the locomotion pack. It'll actually start playing all of the animations in this browser. Our characters moved away from us, so we can just look at them. There's a run. We're looking for a jump. We want to make sure that he's jumping somewhere in these. Did it show all of them already? Oh, there we go. There's a jump. Cool. Okay, so then we're going to download that as well. That could be in the TIFO, sure. Yeah, that should all be good. Okay, so with all of those animations, the next thing that we're going to do is this thing that I keep harping on around the root bone. Full disclosure, when I was playing around with this last time, I actually put I haven't dealt with a whole lot of Miximo characters. I went through the whole Miximo workflow, and then at the end, when I was having the character sit and stand, when he would sit down, he would hop across the screen, and then when he would stand up, it would fire him back. And it goes back to the root bone and how Unreal calculates where the characters are in space and where to play the animations and things like that. And because without an actual root bone, when you use a Miximo character as default, it'll use the hips as its root, and then the calculations of where the character needs to be don't line up. So now that we've downloaded all those animations, we actually have to convert those animations using Blender and add that root bone. It's really easy. There's just a pack, and I'll show you that. And then once we do that, then we'll import them into Unreal. So I'll put this link in the description, but this is basically the pack for Blender. And we'll just download the zip here. Let that go. I put a link for Blender. Again, everything I'm giving you guys or showing you guys is going to be free. And I'll put a link to Blender in the description below as well. And then we'll just need to fire open Blender to get this all working. So let's do that. Okay, so with all that stuff that you just downloaded, let's sort of rearrange where it should go. So this, the Miximo Converter Master, just copy that and put that over in your Blender installation folder, wherever you installed that. This other stuff, we are just going to find another location for it within Unreal. This, or wherever you store your files. This Miximo converter, make sure you don't unzip it either. You don't need to. Blender will use it zipped just fine. Okay, so for me, I'm going to move all these files into Unreal. I have a separate folder for 3D models and downloaded assets because I've got so many things going on here. So I'm just going to go and navigate and put these in. I created a folder called Daemon Demo, so if you want to do the same, that works. I'm just going to delete all this. I was in here before, and I'm just going to paste all that stuff that we downloaded. I do want you to create another folder called Converted Assets, and I'll explain why in a second. And then we want to, within our zipped pack, we don't want the daemon, but all of the other animations in your locomotion pack, copy those out and get those, skip the ones that are common, and get those in here as well. And then you can go ahead and you can delete the locomotion pack. And there we have all of our animations. We have this converted assets folder, and we're all ready to go to use this in Blender. So you downloaded that zip file. We're flipping back over to Blender now. All that we need to do in Blender is go up to Edit, Preferences. You want to go to Add-ons, and then you want to click Install. You want to navigate to wherever it is that you had put that zip file, the Miximo Converter Master. Click on that, install the add-on. I won't do it because I've already installed it. And then after it installs, it should just go back to this add-ons folder, and you should see something that looks like this, and your box will be unchecked. Just check that, and then we're done. If for whatever reason you didn't follow that along, you can always go back to Edit, Preferences, come to Add-ons, and then search here for Miximo, and you should see the file there. And that's it, and then we're ready to go. And then from there, what happens is there's this little flyout arrow. You can see it. My pointer changes to I don't know, the double arrow there. And then when I click on that, it brings out this window. And then there's actually a new tab, this fourth tab here called Miximo. And this is what we're going to use to add the root bone to our animations and to our character. So you want to click Advanced Options. You want to take off Z. You want to take off transfer rotation. So I think you're starting to see anything that's in blue, that means it's selected. Anything in gray is not selected. And then we want to take off apply rotation. We want to, in this section here, type in hips, because it's just asking for the name of what the root bone is in Miximo, and it's called hips. We don't want scale. We want to ignore leaf bones, and what's this one? Automatic bone orientation. Yeah, that's good. Okay, and then we want to on the input. This is just saying, hey, where are the files that we're going to take in, and then it's going to ask, where do you want, after those files have been converted by Blender and the root bone added, where do you want me to put them? So that's why I got you to create that extra folder there. So we're just going to navigate to wherever you put all your assets. Downloaded assets, 3D models, T-pose actors, and in the daemon demo. So here, I'm just going to leave this folder, the daemon demo. It's got all of our assets that we want to convert. We just hit accept, and then likewise, we want to target where we're going to have Blender put the new assets. So we can just navigate basically to the same place. Sorry for being 8 levels deep here. And then here, that converted assets folder that I had you create. Select that, and then we're good to go. I'm just going to stop the recording here and just going to double check those settings. Let me see and make sure that I got them right. Yeah, so that looks right. Once you've got that all set up, then you just hit batch convert. That'll take a few minutes. You'll know when it's done because if you go to your converted assets folder, you'll see it starts populating, and then it'll have every single asset that we asked it to convert. It'll have it show up in the converted assets. How many files is that? 16. How many do we want converted? 16. Okay, good. So it's done. And then we can now import these into Unreal. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's close out of Blender. Don't need to save anything. And let's go to our Unreal. Okay, so before we put these into Unreal, we should do a little bit of renaming. So I went through and I renamed all of these assets to their same name and just underscore MX for Miximo. I'm just going to change the name here to, I'm just going to call it the Demon. Just because I've been messing around in the project and naming and stuff like that. You can leave it as Demon. Just note the difference between mine and yours. And then we'll go back to the Sit and Stand demo project. We'll keep everything organized here. If you recall from the last tutorial, we had the 3D people pack here, we had the mannequin separate, and so that's nicely sort of organized, and then our third person content down at the bottom. So if we keep going with that good organization and we create a folder for Miximo here, that would be good. Miximo, I work in Miximo at work sometimes. I'm getting mixed up. Mixamo, there we go. We'll create a Miximo folder. We'll create a folder for the Demon, because in case we put in other characters, and then we'll have another folder in the Demon for the animations. So if we just go back to the Demon folder, Miximo Demon, oh, that's where we were. Okay, good. Then we'll start bringing in these assets. So the first one we want to do is we want to bring in that FBX of the Demon. Create new materials. Yes, search location. Let's just hit all assets for this one. Cool. I got an error. I don't know. And it's weird because when I did this last time, I didn't have this error, but I just find with Mixamo stuff, who knows what the hell's going on. Anyways, found texture name clash. Name clash can be wrongly assigned at reimport. Texture Demon diffuse. So anyways, there's something going on here. I don't know what the error is, but essentially the materials didn't import. I'm not sure why it tried to bring in two materials either. That seems a little bit strange. And I think I'm just checking out the asset to see if there's something obvious about that error. Oh, it does have two materials assigned, so we'll have to figure out material 01, and yeah, we'll have to figure out how it's got those materials split out, but that's a little bit weird. It should just come in with one material, but anyways, we'll figure this out. So normally when you export it, and maybe you guys got this and I didn't, you get an FBM file with it. We didn't get one, but luckily I did a little bit of playing around, and if you go now, if you have the same issue that I did, and you go back to the original Demon file, and you start to import it, and then you just hit cancel, what's going to happen is in your folder, you'll get this FBM file folder created, and that's what has the assets in it. So then we can bring in the assets for what we need. And then we can assign those to our materials manually. So let's just do that. I'm not sure why it's doing that to me, but I have seen Mixamo do some strange things sometimes. So we'll just roll with it. Hopefully you didn't get this error and you're able just to sort of move along. If your materials showed up with colors on them and your guys are all colored properly, then you're not going to have any issues. But what we'll do is we'll just take the proper items and line them up. So our normal is this weird blue looking one. We'll stick that in normal. Specular is this kind of ghosty or specular one. That's how I remember it anyways. And then this is just the diffused asset, I think. And obviously it's the main color there. Okay, so that's gone on. And then we'll do the same thing for this second material that it seems to want. And we'll drag, you can also drag all three assets in at once, drop them in here, and then move them around. Whoops, it's got this base white one that we'll get rid of. Specular goes in the middle, normal on the bottom, diffuse on top. Let's try that. Did we get what we needed? Apply, save, and let's see how that turned out on our dude. Yeah, there you go, just fine, no problem. So you will have, sometimes you'll have some weird importing issues with these guys and their material and stuff, but looks like for the most part he turned out okay. There's probably some work to do on the cloth and stuff, but that's a little bit more advanced. Overall though, I'd say he came in pretty good. And then we can also bring in all of the assets that we made for him, the actual animations. So let's go ahead and do that. Hopefully they're all renamed. You had a chance to rename them, so they're all denoted as Miximo. And then yeah, we want to bring in everything except this larger daemon file. So select all of your animations and then just drag and drop them in. You want to make sure that skeletal mesh is import mesh is not selected. So just when you have this, just uncheck import mesh. Make sure that you have the skeleton that we just imported selected, and then you should be able to hit import all. Let's see how that goes. We should have a bunch of green animations show up. Yeah, there we go. So you got, let's just see how that worked. You got him jumping. Yeah, he's got some issues on his cloth here. That's too bad. Something went a little wonky on the import on his clothes. Unfortunately, I don't really know how to fix that. And it sucks too, because yesterday, when I brought this in, it was perfect. So that little error that we had around the materials, something funky happened there. But you know what? Regardless, the animations are working fine. So let's just carry on like we don't see that his cloth is a little out of whack, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we have all these animations in. Let's get them into the animation folder. Move here. There we go. Cool. Good. Yeah, that, you know, I'm just thinking about it. It's probably the UV mapping or something, and we can maybe tinker with that later. It is going to bother me a little bit, but okay. So we've now got this dude in here. We've got all his animations in, and now we need to start setting him up. So he needs a blueprint, which we did for Eric and we did for the third person character. We can actually just steal one of those two blueprints. Let's just copy this, duplicate. We'll call this one, whoops. We will call this one MX Demon. Let's leave it as third person. Just get rid of the char. Okay, and then we'll move this over to our Miximo folder. In there, we can actually send it right into that daemon folder there. And then we can fix this up. In the viewport, we're not using this guy. We are using our daemon. There we go. Save that change. What else do we need to change here? Oh, we're going to need an animation blueprint, but we don't have one yet. Oh, you know what? We should use... I did that wrong. We should use Eric's blueprint because we made those changes to Eric's blueprint earlier. So that's the better copy because it doesn't have all that Doesn't have all that extra bloat in the stamina stuff there. Okay. Eric, where are you? Here we go. Let's duplicate this one. Rename this to MX Demon third person. There you go. Okay, this will work better. Put that over under Demon. Move here. And then let's just change. Let's just change this over to our Demon Mesh. There you go. Sure, we can compile it. Why not? Okay. So yeah, if we were to stick that in, that would now be a character we could use. Great, looks fine. Then what do we need to do? Yeah, we need an animation blueprint and we need a blend space. So this is where it gets a little bit interesting. So you want to right click in your animations folder, go up to animations and animation blueprint. We want to build this off of our demon skeleton. So where is he? The demon MX skeleton, that's the one. Boom. And then we will call this MX underscore demon anim BP. There we go. And then we also need a blend space. We actually need that first. So in animation and blend space 1D, again, we want to select our demon skeleton. And then we will call this MX demon blend space. There we go. So now we've got an animation blueprint and an animation blend space. So the blueprint, you've seen it at the beginning of the tutorial. Maybe I'll just show you super quick here so that we're all on the same page and we get a bit of rehash of where we're at. These are going to be in the mannequin animations, and then you've got a third person animation blueprint and this blend space here. And if you remember the animation blueprint, it's this guy. He's the one that has this high level graph. Let's get all the layers in here. Actually, you can go into the state machine, and then this is the one that kind of says, you know, you can walk and run. In our modified one, you've got the sitting functionality off of here, and basically this tells you how to get from one state to another. And then the actual blend space should be this guy, and what he does is he shows you how you move from idle and at what speeds do you move the animation and blend the animation across a space. Okay, so that's what we're creating here. So I'll just flip back to where we were in the anims under this guy, and we'll start with the blend space. Here it is. Okay, so you saw in the other one, basically he started from walking and then he went to running. That's what we want to create here. So this is a 1D, so it's only going to have the horizontal axis, which is fine. We're going to call this speed. We're going to put the maximum axis value of 375. If you look at any of the default mannequins and whatnot, that's what they've kind of calculated, and that works well. You can, of course, you can bump or slow this down if you want your own speeds and adjust it, but I like what's there out of the box with the Unreal mannequin. And then basically what we're doing is we are going to take our idle animation and drag and drop it at the beginning of our timeline, right? We've just got, see, all that we did was we renamed the axis here speed, and then we basically allowed it to plot from 0 to 375. So we put idle at the beginning, and then we put a walk in the second piece here. So we find our walking animation, and we drop that in. And now if we grab this little green thing, we can see that he moves from idle to walking. And basically it's saying, you know, with the joypad where you can slowly touch it and you can slowly ramp up that speed from 0 to 375, when it gets to this, you know, whatever a quarter is or 20% of 375, then that's when it kind of gets into that walking state. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to find our run running MX, and we want to stick that at the end of our thing. So when you get to your full speed of 375, if you drag this thing, then he starts running. So now we've got this blend space animation that moves our dude from walking to running. That's it. Your blend space is done. We did that first because the animation blueprint needs a blend space blueprint to work over. So you can actually see they've already realized the blend space was created and stuck it in here, which is great. So in here, we need two things. And what I like to do is I like to, because we are following the default mannequin, I like to just bring up the mannequin and sort of use it as a template to follow so we don't screw anything up. So let's do that. Let's open up the reason I opened up this SS one is from the first tutorial, we created this sit and stand blueprint, and it's already got the sit function in there. So basically, we're just going to replicate all of this into our daemon one and just make sure that it lines up well and it follows the way that they've done it, and then everything should work. And we're just going to use the animations that we took and pluck them add them into each place where they've got like animations on the default mannequin, and everything should be honky-dory. So we need this default slot and we need this default state machine. So let's do that. Default slot, default state, default, or let's just put in state machine. There we go. Add new state machine. There we go. And then you just drag these little dudes onto the corresponding one, and if we hit compile and save, you'll see it start moving, and there's a warning because we're not done yet, because there's nothing in this machine here. Okay, so all I did was after I set that up in the animation graph, is I just double-clicked on the new state machine, and then that'll take us into this portion. And so we'll do the same thing on our mannequin, and then we'll just replicate this. So what you do is you drag off of entry, you add a state, and then you would put, is it idle, or is it walk run? Yeah, idle to run. So we'll do the same thing. Whoops, didn't mean to click on that. New state machine. Is there a rename? Let's just delete it and redo it. Sorry. Add state, yeah, and then idle / run. And then in here, I believe that we're going to take that blend space. Yeah, we take our speed variable, we jam it into the blend space, and then we're good. Where did I get that speed? Oh, we should create these three variables too. Is in air, is sitting, and speed. So let's do that now. Is in air, question mark. This one was speed, and what was the other one? Is sitting. Yeah, is sitting. Let's create all of those. Is sitting. I don't think it had a question mark. Keep it. Is sitting, speed, is in air. Great. Okay, cool. This guy needs to move from a Boolean to a float, and then we're good. So let's drag in our speed variable, get speed. It needs to go into our blend space. So this is this blend space that we just created. It now shows up in our animations here in the bottom right. All of our animations are stored here. If you double clicked on them, like if we double clicked on this, it would just open up that blend space that we made. See, lovely. Let's close that. Likewise, if you double clicked on walking or whatever, it would bring up the animation editor there. Cool. Okay, so let's drag in our blend space. We drag in our speed, and then we drag it to the output. And that's what's going to happen between walk and run. And look, you can see once it's live, then it sort of animates in that way, which is cool. So the way that that's working is on entry, you start with your blend space of just any movement moves you from idling to all the way up to running, and that's how that works. And then the next thing we can do is we'll save sit. It's a little bit more complicated, so we'll create the jump. Well, you know what? They're all a pain in the ass, so let's just create sit. Oh, I should say, if you want to move these little blocks away, around, you have to navigate to the center of them and wait for that move thing. The outside is where you drag and drop from. So it gets a little confusing. Sometimes you're going and clicking on this box and expecting it to move. It won't move unless you grab it in the center, and then to drag to the next item, new node that you're putting in, you have to make sure that you're on the outside. A little finicky. Okay, so add state, let's put in sit. Yeah. And I don't remember what's in there. Play, oh yeah, that's just the idle sitting. Sure, so that's easy. We have an idle, sitting idle, yes. Boom, okay. And then sure, let's save that. We don't have to compile just yet, sorry. And then always just click back on this new state machine. You drag the state back. And then these little nodes are here as well. And we'll need to do a little bit of work on each one of those. And I'll show you in here. If you double click on this node, it's basically saying is sitting and can it enter into that transition. So it's using this Boolean value to determine whether or not it can go into that. So let's fire that in if it can go into that state, and then compile it. We'll go back out, do the other side, and what did we have for the other side? Oh yeah, it's not sitting. So the same thing is sitting, get the sitting variable, look for the not function. So that all that's doing is just flipping that Boolean around. Boom. And we're back. So that's our sit functionality. I would like to, because I don't like to layer too much on top of one build before testing, so I would like to test out this functionality to some degree, at least the blend space. Our next item is to create the jump loop, and so I don't want to create 4 or 5 other levels and then levels of detail and then go to test it and have to troubleshoot all those changes together. Basically, this is the piece that we're going to replicate. So if I can test the blend space and make sure that it's working at this point, I think that would be good. So let's just save and compile. First thing we'll need to do is adjust our third-person character away from Eric. So let's put in the daemon third person. Save and compile that. So that'll switch our character. He still doesn't have any animations. If we run that, so we need to actually adjust our daemon blueprint. That is here on the viewport. We now have built the animation, so we should be able to find that here. We should see him come to life. So that's because of the walk blend space. This is him, the idle walk blend space. This is him idle. So we should be able to test that out. There he is standing idle. He's still gliding around. And why is that? Oh, you know why? It's because we haven't created any of the event graphs. So maybe we'll do that piece and then we'll test all that. So this I'm not going to create from scratch. Why reinvent the wheel? UE4 or Unreal has showed us, given us a clear example of how this is supposed to work, and it'll work for our Miximo character. So really, we're just going to replicate this code that's over here in the mannequin. So let's do that. So we started the event blueprint update animation, and I'm actually going to drag this to my second screen and just replicate it over. So let's do that. So is valid. This drags in here. This part has 2. get movement component. Is falling. And then from is valid, we have a set for is in air. So we created these earlier to stick into our animation blueprint, but this is really where the variable is being set. Then we have a third chain off of here, getting velocity, vector length, and then we're setting the speed. Okay. Boom. And this guy runs down here. I like to keep the actual, so the white line is the actual run of your code, and the rest of this stuff is usually manipulation of variables or getting data, but your actual line of what's running is the white line. So I kind of like to keep those in line. The set BI functionality is here in the code that we've taken in. And so we do need to make a little change up in the class settings, and we need to go and get that referenced interface to use the set BI. And that was, what the heck was the name of that interface? Sit BI was the end one, but the one that was driving set BI is in the blueprint's new interface. Oh, real original. Okay, so we need to add new interface here. There it is. And like I said, that's really just this blueprint, right? It lets us grab it from that, or lets it utilize it from that blueprint. And then with that added, we do have to compile before it allow us to add it to the functions. And then in our functions, do we add set BI? No, it should be there on its own. Delete that. Where is set BI? Class settings, add new interface. We added it, and we should. Oh yeah, it just shows up now after we compiled. There we go. So the other thing we need to add down here is the event sit BI, and all that it's doing is it's going to allow us to set, or we're going to just set that variable off of the event sit BI. Set is sitting. So when the animation is called, if the event sit BI is called, set the sitting variable to whatever's passed to it. And I believe that's it. I'm just going to replicate the comments that Unreal and the previous coders have put in. Slide this stuff down a little bit, keep it clean. And they've got this section commented out. So just see. And what did they put? See if pawn owner is valid. Will not be in persona. Okay, so they're checking to make sure the pawn's valid before it runs off the animation. And then they're setting that is in air. Set is in air, used by the state machine. And then the last one is setting the speed that's used in the 1D in the blend space. So this is just setting the setting speed, and then used in 1D blend space, which we've already created, so that should make some bit of sense. I'm just going to make sure this is clean. it up a little bit. There, how's that? Okay, it's overlapping the title, but that's okay. Good enough. Okay. Yeah, so we should have replicated what was in the mannequin, and let's just see if that changes our 1D blends. Yeah, there you go. So now it's taking advantage of the animation. Our guy looks good, moving around. I don't really see any issues. If I walk him slowly, he'll walk. I've just got my joystick hooked up, so if you're still using the keyboard, then that might not work for you, but I just wanted to test that he goes from walk to run, and he certainly does. Okay, cool. So that means what we've added so far is working. So let's continue on. That means anything that we add on now, if it screws it up, well, then we know where to look. We don't have to look in all of this. Well, we likely won't have to look in all of that other code that we've created. Okay, I'm going to drag our third person back. I just put it on my second screen there so I could cross-reference. And yeah, we'll get into the jumping portion of it. So as a reminder, we are going to replicate this part, and we get a little bit into animation, and it'll be interesting. I don't know that I'm going to get this 100% correct because it might take a little bit of fiddling, and what I mean by that is the functionality will work, but maybe how the animation blends and looks might not be perfect at this tutorial. We'll see where we get, and we'll try to do our best, but I don't want to spend a ton of time tweaking and getting that perfect. You guys can get it the way that you want it. Anyways, so let's go with jump start, jump loop, and then jump end. So let's do that. Jump start. Whoops, what am I doing? Add state. Jump start. I don't think that the names really matter, but it does look like I've done it same way as they have. Add state, jump. Whoops, come on. Jump loop. What is going on with my clicking? Okay, and then jump end we'll do here. Jump end, okay. And there we go. Okay, so now we just got to edit each one of these. Can't remember. Yeah, this is in air, and the other one is, whoops. The other one is the time ratio. Just trying to remember everything here. This is not in air. So we'll try and make sure that all lines up. So I think the first one was is in air, right? Yes, is in air. Whoops. Yeah, is in air. Type in there. File save. That looks right. This one is not in air, I believe. Yep. So do that one. Is in air. Get is in air. And then this little thing, this not, is just a flip of your Boolean. So we want to flip it around. Yeah, it just does a logical check of not is in air. So it's just a flip of that Boolean, like I said. And then the other ones we won't be able to do until we populate. Because it's referencing, so it wants the jump asset that we haven't created yet, and I think it's the same here. Yeah, third person jump asset. So we'll leave those until after, and then we just need to put in our animations in each one of these pieces. So this is, remember, this little thing here is the logic that is going to allow us to jump into this animation transition. So here's where we want to add in our jump. Now, the challenge with that is with our demon character, we only have a full jumping animation. So if we go back to our animations on the demon character here, into animations, you've got this this jumping asset, and it's a full jump motion. So there's no jump loop, there's no separated jump start, and there's no separated jump end. And if you look at our third person character, whoops, I guess I can stay out here. If you look at the animations in our mannequin, in our default mannequin, you will find these things: the jump end, jump loop, and jump start. And you know what? Guess what? Those correspond with exactly those animations. And you can see, exactly those parts of the state machine. And you can see that that isn't a full range jump. It's just a start of the jump. So if we pause this and took a look at what's actually happening here, so I just hit pause at the bottom of this animator, and you've got a little bit of a flag that you can drag across the scene and just look at the individual frames within that scene to get any part of the animation. So we can look at this in really slow motion and see. So he's taken off from the ground, his one foot's coming over the other, and then it halts, right? So what we should do is we should replicate a similar state for our jump start from our jump animation. So how can we do that? Well, if we go back down to our demon animations, all of that motion is captured in this jump animation. But what we need to do is we need to cut it up and split it up and get it to work, right? So we can do that. So we want to look at matching up basically our jump asset with the jump start of his, and it will do that. So what I want you to do though is I actually want you to duplicate this jump asset 3 times. So we'll just click on it, we'll hit Control W, we'll call this one jump start, MX is fine, then we'll duplicate again, whoops, I'll just hit Control W, jump loop, and then one more time. Oh man, why don't I just use the, whoops, what did I do? No, go away. Control W, and then here we go. Jump end. There we go. Okay, jump end, jump loop, jump start. Okay, and the one that we're working on is jump start. So let's open that up, and then we'll, like I said, we'll cross-reference to this guy here. So yeah, let's drag that. So he's sort of already getting in the jump position, and then he runs through. You can see his, I'm just looking, our character is opposite, by the way, in his animation. You'll see when he starts his jump, the foot that's on our right, so his left foot is taking off first, and the foot that's on the left for this guy is sort of taking up first and going there, right, and then coming back around. So when it ends, the left foot, his right foot on our left is almost coming back down. So let's see if we can take a look at that. So ours is on the right, it comes up, and then boom, the right is first to come down. So that's the part. So we kind of want to go somewhere from here, because he does go from standing and our guy's going to be idle, so we probably want to get it somewhere around here and then to there. So let's do that. How do we trim this up? Let's go around there, just after the 5 mark here at 6 frames. So just if you're not familiar with animators, really these markers across the top, those are just the sections of frames. So this is saying there's 5 frames, 10 frames, 15 frames in this sort of section. This 6 here is saying that we've sort of selected roughly about 6 frames, and all a frame is like it's a split second in time. I don't know the exact measurement of time that they're using for the frames, but it's just a moment in time across that animation. So we're on frame 6, and we're just going to right click on our marker here. And we should be able to, it's going to come up with this little bit of an editor, and it's going to give us options of removing the frames on either the left side or the right side of it. In this case, we want to trim out the frames from 0 to 6 and get our animation to start right there. So that's right, and then let's get it to the other section. And so if we're going to time and make it sort of look like the Unreal skeleton, you've got it just to where his foot and toe is, maybe half a foot off the ground, and that looks to be about comparable there. Yeah, we don't want it to go too much lower. So then we'll do that at about 30 frames, and you know what, if we can put it right on, let's just do that, 30. Okay, and then again, we'll just right click and we'll just say remove from frame 31 to 60. So let's just see how that looks. Whoops, and we'll drag it. Boom. Okay, so that seems to be right for our jump start. The other thing that they've got going on here is they've got, they don't have a notify set, and they do have 2 curve items set. And so what those are at a high level is each one of these are variables that you can set. So you can set a notify across your timeline, and what that would do is set a variable or an execution point. If we marked a notify somewhere along this track, we could say, if we wanted the character to maybe make a sound when he's first jumping, we could put a notify and then basically have a triggered sound at that point in time. And likewise, if you've got someone running and you want to create footsteps or something like that, you could put a notify in your animation every point that the character is touching the ground or whatnot, and then play that sound. That's a good use case. You could be creative and do a bunch of other things with that, but that's the notifies. And like I said, they don't have any set up, but they do have these 2 curve variables set up. They aren't, from what I can tell, they aren't doing anything with it. All that it's doing is a curve is usually, like a bell curve or a graph, and you can see that they've just got this flatlined at 1. And so what the curve allows you to do, and again, remember it's a variable, is along your animation is change the value of that variable. So if you had, I'm not going to change anything because I don't want to mess around with this, but actually, you know what, I will drag and then I'll put it back. So say, say we took these nodes up here, and now you've got this sort of graph, right? If I went along the timeline, this variable is sitting at 1. So it's 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and then boom, at this moment in time, the value here is, let's just say that's 1.3, and then, almost 1.4, and then 1.3 again, and then I guess technically below 1, and then back to 1 again. So you could then, based on that variable, use that in your program to do whatever you want. Is like what, for example, you could size something. Say you're doing some crazy animation where a character's punching and you wanted to like grow the size of his fist to, maybe it's not a realistic one and it's more cartoony, and so maybe what you want to do is the fist is the same size, but then when it connects, it grows and like explodes in the guy's face. That's where you could do this, is like at the connection point. Or the other thing I was thinking would be cool is 2 other ideas I thought would be cool is like maybe you had like Mr. Fantastic with like stretchy arms, and so maybe you wanted throughout the animation to be able to extend how far the arm goes based on what's happening in the animation. And then the last thing I thought of is like if you had someone like clapping and you were playing the same sound throughout an animation, but maybe they did 3 claps. They did 1, and then they did a really loud one, and then they did a soft one again. Maybe you want to put the animation to grow the volume of your sound over that time, and so you're using this variable set on that graph. So that's all that is. So I'm just going to reset that. So for the purposes of what we're doing, just to be consistent with the Unreal Mannequin, we'll create this flat curve. We're not using it for anything, but we should probably just throw it in there. So we'll create these two variables, blend orient and blend parent, and then we'll put it in our daemon, and we'll just be comfortable that it's not actually doing anything that we're going to use at this time. So add blend. You're going to have to create a curve. I guess I must have done this in another sort of, I went ahead and did some work and then came back and deleted some things. So yeah, you can create a curve. You can just put a name in and it'll show up. So for me, I'm just going to add them, and you will create them. So add, and on your side, you're just going to go at create curve, and you'll end up with the same thing. And then what we'll do is we'll double click. Oops, why is it not letting us do that? Do I have to save first? Oh, there. Double click. Why wasn't that working before? We'll have to double click, and then it allows us to go in. At the beginning of our timeline, I'm just using the scroll wheel to zoom out. You'll just hit the middle mouse button here at the beginning of your timeline, and then the middle mouse button at the end. You'll left click and select both of those, and then you'll just drag them up to 1. The third mouse button allows you to move the timeline left and right and up and down. So that's how I'm doing that, to show 1. And then you'll just drag this up to the 1 line. And then we're consistent with what Unreal's done for their mannequin. And just do the same thing for the blend orient. For whatever reason, it won't let me click in. I won't troubleshoot that now, but mine is just slightly different than yours. So you should be able to double click and then just replicate what we did in blend parent. And then I think we're done here for the jump start. And then what we want to do is we want to create the jump loop and the jump end. So let's go ahead and do that. We can just, instead of going out of our editor, we have them here. So let's do jump end. It's a little bit easier. So obviously we're going to slide to the end of our timeline and get this guy dropping. And we want to catch him, you know, at somewhat close to his idle pose so that it blends over to his idle pretty well there. And let's just see what Unreal has done for the jump end. They have, that is not the end, that's the loop. Here we go. They have, so his foot's almost at the ground. He lands, sort of bends his knees, and then goes back into what's probably close to the idle pose. Let's just take a look at their idle pose and see if that's accurate. Yeah, so he's kind of got bent, he's got a bit of an arched back, his hands are bent at the side, and that aligns with, you know, pretty close to their jump end. So you can tell that's what they're doing, right, is they're lining up those animations. So we should do the same. Our dude in idle looks like this, and we may have a jump because maybe our idle doesn't match quite as well as our end, but let's see what we can get. Yeah, his arms aren't at the side, so actually instead of cutting it here where it's flat, I might actually cut it in the motion because it'll be a cleaner jump from here to our idle if we do that. So let's try and find that. Yeah, I think I actually want it somewhere around there. I mean, it's not gonna be great. We should have maybe thought about that when we picked our animations, but yeah, let's try there. So we'll go around 48 if you're following me. Like I said, it's not gonna be perfect. I'd spend more time on this. I'd probably go back and get some different animations, but we're too far along here. I'd have to redo all the tutorials, so that's not happening. So we'll do what we got. So we're gonna basically go from this to that. You can see it'll be a bit of a hop, is my guess, but oh well. We'll see if we can tweak that after. Okay, so we cut it off around 48. It now goes to frame 49, and then where do we want to end it or start this animation? Yeah, so he's finishing the jump somewhere around there. they've got their start is, yeah, so he's got his left foot, the foot on our right, is sort of bent, and the right foot, the foot on our left, is just sort of straight. The foot on our left touches first, and then the other one just kind of touches. So it's just above the ground, and then he's just bringing that foot down. So I think we might be close here, just above the ground and bringing the foot down. Yeah, so that looks about right. Let's do that. So around frame 36, right click, remove frames 0 to 36, and then here's our jump end. That seems pretty reasonable. And know that you can always come back and edit this after. We're going to put in those curves. You should just be able to add the curve now that you created the variables in the previous animation. If not, then create them, and then we will double click and do the same thing that we did on the others to drag this from value from 0 to, to create the pointers with the middle mouse button. You'll notice this one doesn't line up right on the end. I believe these nodes that we're creating only sit on the actual numbers. See these lines here, and so that's why it's picked the closest one to where we selected. But it's fine for our purposes because all that we are doing is just using them to slide this up. Boom. Okay, we are now up to 1. And we'll do that again here. And you'll notice too, actually, these little values will reflect what you made the changes with. Do that. Slide this up to 1. Oops, missed. Oh. You could probably even get away with using one of these dots, but whatever, I put in 2. Okay, cool. So I think that's it for our jump end. Yeah, let's go with that. I have a feeling that the animation is not going to be clean, and maybe I'll create a third one if I end up tweaking the animations to look a little bit cleaner. But maybe I'll make a third tutorial, but we'll see. Now the jump loop. This one's a little bit interesting, and I'm not sure that we're going to get this one even remotely right. So I believe the point of the jump loop is you've got your jump start, and then you've obviously got your landing. If you played the whole jump animation, it's clean in that time frame, but there's something that we can't control, and that's the hang time of the character. So the way that Unreal is built by default is, you can jump, and the higher you are, it uses actual physics to keep you in the air longer, and yada, 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 right? So how do you account for that in animation of starting your jump, floating, and then doing your land and not knowing what that timing is going to be? And what they do is I believe that's why they've put in the jump loop, is to just keep these legs sort of dangling and moving and showing some sort of animation so it looks real while you're flying through your physics arc, if that makes sense. I think it does, so we'll go with that. So you can see that they've kind of got this animation from all it does is it just sort of rotates, and then it goes back to the beginning position. So the best way to do this in animation would probably to get it to the halfway point and then reverse the animation so that it's just a smooth. It goes one way and then reverses, and it just flows smoothly. I wasn't able to find any way to do reverse animation just yet, and maybe if I do, and if I clean these animations up, like I said, I'll put that in the third tutorial. So we'll just do our best to sort of take a piece of our current animation that looks right, and we'll make it work and know that it's not going to be perfect at this point. So how can we do that? So we want to find him sort of hanging in the air here. I think you want to have it so that the loop would jump into the landing pretty quick, and so you can see that any point around the landing portion sort of ties into their jump end okay. So I think that's what we want to make sure is the most important thing to make sure of. So our end starts here, so we should probably have something in our loop that matches this near the end. So let's have a look. Whoops, I clicked in the wrong spot. So let's try and get that. So the end is here, so we'll probably want to create the loop. Like something like that is probably our loop, right? You're floating, 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 floating. Right, so that's our end, and maybe we can like put it up a little bit like that, so our dude is just doing this while he's in the air, which actually looks kind of cool, right? So let's imagine that this is the end here of our loop, and we'll cut everything from to the right of this, so from frame 35 to 36. And then where do we want this to start? We don't want it to do too much, because I'm thinking if we go too much to the left here, then it's a loop, right? So you're going to jump from this end all the way back here, and that is vastly different. So we don't want it to be, we want it to be somewhat subtle, so it just kind of, so let's try here. So remove frame 0 to 30, and then this will be our loop. And that, maybe that's not too bad, I don't know. Maybe that's too much, maybe it would be better. Yeah, I almost think that it's too much. I'm going to cut another frame out. Remove frames 0 to 2. Yeah, that seems okay. Let's go with that. Cool. Again, we're going to add those curves that are doing nothing. But who knows? I'm just going to save. We might as well save some headaches or troubleshooting later on by not having it in there. And let's just match it to Unreal. Maybe they're using it for something in the default character settings. I don't think that they are, but you never know. It's obviously got to been done for a reason at some point. So let us move it. Okay, cool. I think that's it. So I think we're done our 3 animations, and now we can actually plug them back into our animation graph. So we want to go back to this. Oh, I was like surprised. Why is this all done? Well, we did it. Okay, and let's plug them in. So this should be pretty straightforward. We're just taking jump start, throwing it in here. Boom, done. Jump loop. Surprise, surprise, we're just sticking it in there. File save. Just confirm that that's the case on the third person character. Jump start, yep. Jump loop, yep. Jump, and yeah, like, I mean, that's super straightforward. So that's all we're doing. Seemed too easy. I had to double check and make sure that I wasn't going crazy. Okay, jump end, plug it in there, file save, and let's just make sure that I did that right. I accidentally one time put a strafe in one of these, and he was like flying through the air and then like jumping out 90 degrees because he was strafing in midair. So you can imagine it didn't work so well. So those look to be set up right. And then we just need to make sure these are done. We did this one already. This one we didn't do because we needed to make sure that those animations were in first. So that's the other way, is if you plug in the wrong animation in any of these, when we go to do this step, if you're not seeing the right options, then it might indicate that you've used the wrong animation. So what we're actually going to do is, sorry, I'm jumping around here, is we need this time remaining ratio from the jump. So it's basically doing a calculation. Like if we hover over here, oh, it doesn't tell you exactly what it's doing. I believe it's doing a calculation on how much time is left in the animation that's playing. And then based on that, if the animation is less than this amount, then they can enter into the next transition. But it's basically making it so that you don't start playing the next animation unless you're close to the end of the other one. So I think that should make sense. And, you know, I don't have that on an official word, but we're reverse engineering, and that's how I'm learning. And I believe that that's the case. Okay, yeah, so we want to get this time remaining ratio. Sorry for clicking around there. So we'll just put in time remaining, and then we're going to look for our jump start, and then it should be the one that says ratio here, and then we want to pull in, why can't I think off the top of my head? I'm going to close these because I keep clicking around and it's probably distracting. Yeah, we're going to pull in the less than. You go away too. Okay, we're going to pull in the less than float. So we'll go float, and then we'll put in the less than sign, little alligator there, and then we'll match theirs and say 0.1, and then that is done. Compile, save. Okay, cool. We'll go back to the state machine. So we should have something there. We have this one. Didn't we just do this one? Yeah, how come it's not showing? Okay, anyways, we already have this one done, yes, and then it's just this one, and if just to make sure that I do this right and don't tell you wrong, it's the time remaining ratio again, and then it's less than again. So let's just confirm those match. Less than, yep, less than 0.1 and less than 0.1. Okay, cool. So let's put that in. Time remaining ratio to jump end. We will put in the float less than, and then we'll put in 0.1 as the value, and away you go. So compile, save that, and we should be good to test this. So let's see how we've done. How do our animations look? Yeah, it's not, I mean, it's not horrible. Right, you can see it kind of skips a little bit in the middle there, and that's because of our, I mentioned our loop wasn't that clean, right? So he's almost landing before he lands, I think, too. So there's some tweaking. There's some tweaking that obviously needs to be done. But I think for the purposes of this demo, you get the point. We didn't do too bad of a job. This is literally, I learned this in the last 3 or 4 days. So, and only by reverse engineering, not really watching any tutorials on how to do this. So I think, for figuring this out backwards and kind of playing around, it's not horrible. We're close, right? I think it would just take, cutting a few frames out and blending the transitions a little better. I'd like to find a way where we can reverse play some of the animations, but yeah, you can see it kind of cuts scenes, and you can see at the end there when it goes from the landing. See, there's a bit of a skip there too. So I am aware of some ways to blend those and to make those a little cleaner, but I won't put that in this tutorial. Maybe if I get around to it and play and clean up those animations when I get to that in my actual game, maybe I'll make a part 3 of this, and we'll clean it up for you. But for now, I think it serves the purpose. Okay, so let's get this guy sitting. How do we do that? There's a little bit of complication in here, and again, I've gone ahead and I make sure that this stuff all works before I put it in the tutorial for you. So there are some complications that I ran into, where when the guy sits, he all of a sudden just hops across the screen. There's a bit of an issue in one of the animations that we imported, so unfortunately we are going to have to go back into Blender, but I think it's a really good learning opportunity for us, and so it'll give some good insight into that portion. But before we do that, what we need to do next is we need to create a couple of montages, animation montages, and I'll show you why. If we go back to, I'm just trying to make sure I got the right blueprint. Yeah, if we go back to our character blueprint, so this is in the Miximo daemon, and we click on this blueprint, in here, remember, this is the E key is what's driving our sit. We've got a few logic gates here and some setting up of the variable. You can see, this is where we're calling sit.vi to make that reference. We've got, here's where we made the code change so that our guy wasn't jumping from multiple chair objects back to the original one. This is referencing the target arrow, and then if you recall, after referencing the target arrow, it's then trying to align the character to face the same way as the arrow. The arrow is just that piece in the chair blueprint. Where's your chair blueprint? Whenever it's referencing the arrow, oops, it's actually just referencing this guy. There's your arrow, right? So then remember, I don't know if you remember, but at the very beginning of this series, I told you that arrow is really just there to drive what way does our character need to face so that he can sit down in the right direction. So that's that arrow being referenced, and that's here. And so it's basically saying, you know, get the location of all these different objects, your character, the arrow, and then line them up accordingly and get them facing the right way. And then once that's complete, play this animation montage. And you can see in here it says stand to sit montage, and you've got a similar one on this other chain. Remember, these are two separate chains. One is to sit and one is to stand, right? And so you've got this other montage kicking off from sit to stand. So we need to create a montage that the blueprints can kick off on and play our sit to stand or stand to sit animations. So this part is actually really easy to replicate in our daemon character and animations. We're just going to right click. We are going to go to animation, and we're going to create an animation montage. We need to obviously pick our skeleton. So ours is the daemon MX. Yours might be just daemon. We will pick that, and then we will call this sit. Whoops. I'm having trouble clicking today. Sit to stand montage. And maybe what I'll do is I'll do MX daemon underscore sit to stand montage, and then we'll just duplicate that, and we will call it, the other one will be stand to sit. So stand to sit. Okay, cool. So we got our two montages. These are really easy. I'm clicking on the stand to sit montage. And all that we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our animations are dragged in here. So what is the one that we need? This is our stand to sit. So we need to just drag the stand to sit in here. Boom. Done. Save. And then we'll do the same for the other one. Stand to sit. And then here is sit to stand. Sit to stand. Oh. Right? You know what? I should have played the other one. So he's sitting to standing. I've got, oh, and I don't know if you've got this set, so I should have done this earlier. But is it in the show? No, if you click on character up here and then you hit bone and all hierarchy, you'll see the bones. That's the only reason why my bones are displaying there. I use that for, you know, if I was trying to figure out the root. So here's that root that we added. If we didn't add that, you wouldn't really see that, but you can now see that that's what's sort of rooting the skeleton to some extent. See, if we click on this root, remember this is the skeleton tree, it'll actually show you the bone that you're selecting, hips. So the Miximo skeleton only has this hip bone and does calculations off of that. The Unreal skeletons have this root that sort of translates to the floor. So that's that. Cool. So that was sit to stand, and then we'll just make sure the other one, yeah, is standing to sit. It's playing. Cool. So those are working. Now we would need to go into our blueprint now that we've created those, and I showed you that there's a reference there. We'd actually need to go in and change those now. So let's do that. We'll start with this one on the bottom chain, and this is, you can see they've got it sit to stand, so we'll just match that, right? We should have an MX daemon sit to stand now. Plug that in there, and this one, same thing. This is stand to sit, so we want to match that with our daemon. compile, save, and can we test that out? It's not going to work perfect. I'll give you a heads up, but that's the little learning opportunity for us. So we need to make a couple of other changes. The chair blueprint also references the character. I'm not sure that I love that, but that's the code that we took. Personally, I would probably look to change this slightly because it's targeting only one specific character, and you might have multiple characters that want to sit somewhere. I'm not sure how it would work with NPC characters, the character that isn't your character that you're controlling. What if you wanted them to sit? How do you make that work? So in the future, I may tweak this, but for now, it just directly references the one character. So you can see we've still got it pointing to Eric, and I think we covered that earlier. So I am going to just right-click here, say cast to daemon, not the blueprint, we want the third person, and not the class. And then we'll just reset these up. Remember, we can't use the set variable because that one's tied to Eric. So I'm actually just going to move this down. And then I'm going to comment this out. How do you do that? There's a way to... Maybe you have to do it per node. I thought there was a way to comment it out. Maybe I didn't add it in right now. Huh. Can't find it. There is a way to comment it out. Maybe I just haven't set that up in this project. Anyways, moving on. It's not important. Set sit to, or set can sit, and that's set to true. You know what? I'll just delete this so it's not confusing. Forget it. I was going to comment it out, but whatever. I'll look at that later, why I can't comment that out. And then we'll do the same thing here. So cast to mx. I hope you're seeing now why it's so important to be a little bit anal about the naming conventions, is that if we didn't be a little bit particular in our naming, it'd be really difficult to kind of find everything that we need to find. Okay, so that's all reset. Yep, okay, compile, save. I think that's everything we had to do. Let's just check. Is he going to sit now? Hey, look at that. He is sitting. How come he's sitting? I wasn't actually expecting him to sit cleanly like that. When I had this before, he was moving around. Oh yeah, you know what? Yours is probably sliding. It must have saved some changes that I made. So I'll just show you where those changes are, and we can see the difference in real time. So I'm going to go back up to the animations. Here. Okay, so in the, it's actually in the sit to stand, the sitting idle, and the to sit. So let's look at the sit to stand. Let's go to the asset details, and yes. So if we scroll down, yours is actually in the transform section on, what am I in? Sit to stand. Sit to stand, these are all going to be zeroed out. So I'm actually going to zero these back out, and I'll get it to line up with the issue that you're probably having. Sit to stand. Sitting idle, we'll go to the transform. These should be, oh, these are 0. So that's sit to stand, sitting idle, and then stand to sit. Let's just check. This one I think is zeroed out already. Yeah. So the other two, so these two, sit to stand and sitting idle, I changed the setting to -60, and this one I had left as it was. And I'll show you the reason being in a sec. So I actually did just want to talk about this transform. So what this transform section is doing is it's saying when you load this asset in, where do you want basically the center of this character to be based on, in reference to your original FBX file. Your original FBX file and the information that's stored in it came from, in our case, came from Blender or Miximo, right? We took it from Miximo, then we moved it into Blender, and then we brought it here. So somewhere in there, definitely in Miximo, there would be some centering information. And then again in Blender, we put it in there. We didn't make any changes other than that program. That program may have made some changes, but really it's got that centering information. Where is your character in terms of the 0Y, the X, Y, and Z axis, right? So that's all that is. And you can see that I changed the Y value to -60 on 2 of the animations previously. Well, we'll see why I did that. And it's so unfair because it's gonna seem very straightforward when I explain it to you, but this had me reeling for the good part of this last week trying to figure out what the hell was going on, right? I mean, we're reverse engineering this, so I don't have any experience in this space, and it was like, well, why is this happening? Anyways, yada, 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 yada. Okay, so go over here with that. Oh, you know what? He's probably still going to sit fine. Yeah. Reason being, I know that. Reason being is I didn't re-import. So I changed the settings here, but what you need to do is you need to re-import, right? Because we're pulling that from the original FBX. These changes only apply when you're pulling in the FBX. So I actually have to go up here and hit re-import on these animations. And now they're going to re-import with the 000 values. So let's do that again. Re-import, save. Rather than figuring out which one is which, I'm just going to do that. And I'll save this one. Okay, so I re-imported those, and now I should be able to replicate the issue that you're having. Should slide out. Yeah, look at that. Okay, so why is that happening? I'm going to show you in Blender because I think it's most clear there. And again, so unfair that you guys get all this info without having to go through the pain, the mental agony of trying to figure out how the hell am I going to have this ready for a tutorial by the end of the week, which I promised. Okay, get rid of that. And what we're going to do is, we're going to import, and you can follow along or you can just watch. It doesn't matter to me. But all that I'm going to do is I'm going to import the animations that we imported into Unreal. So if you recall, those were, I'll show you, in our 2 folders that we used in Blender earlier. So downloaded assets, where was I? 3D models, T-pose actors, and then I had the demon demo. And then we had this main folder that we used as our ones from Miximo, and then we converted them to add the root bone in Blender, and then we threw them into these converted assets. So the converted assets are the ones that we ended up importing into Unreal. So these are the ones that I want. So it's these 3 assets. So sit to stand, let's just import that. And there you can see our, we don't have a mesh attached to it, so that's just it. That's what our skeleton looks like. Okay, and then we're going to import the other ones right on top of this because I think it really demonstrates the issue quite well. So that was the, I believe that was sit to stand because he's already sitting. Then here's the sitting idle. And you notice those are imported. So you look at that, the sitting idle and the sit to stand, look at that. They line up cleanly. You can't even tell that one's there. If I hit the G key, you can see I actually have 2 assets. So that tells you that those are lined up perfectly. So where's the problem? Well, you're going to see. Sit to stand, sitting idle, stand to sit. So look at this. So right now, here's that centering information that I was talking about, that location in X, Y, and Z. And you can tell that these are all lined up. If we had to imagine their root is somewhere, to their hips, to the floor, then, their roots are lining up. But let's go over to the animation section and actually run through what this animation looks like. If I drag, so now that you're somewhat familiar with animators, I clicked on the animation tab, and same thing, I'm just taking this marker here and I'm dragging it along these timelines. And these little ticks, just like those triangles that we added in Unreal on their animation timeline, Those are just marks along the animation frame. So these marks, what do they call them? Why can't I think of the keyframe? These little ticks are keyframes, and so each one of these keyframes is just telling, um, is just indicating a specific spot along the timeline animation that we want something to happen. And that's really the root of how animation works and yada, yada, yada. But watch this. So when I play, and maybe you've already seen it, but if I play this animation through, well, look at that. So the root of this animation is shifting and in the wrong way. So when he sits, he's completely out, right? So we actually, we could, in Blender, just take this up and, take the whole piece of this animation and line it up. And we would probably want to take that floor piece with it and get it lined up 100%. And that's fine, because all that we need to do is just make this animation line up with the other ones. And that's basically that minus 60 that I was showing you before. Was like I played around in Unreal to get the actual measurement. I didn't do any specific measurements to get the exact value, but that's it. And honestly, this in Blender, I didn't know until I had fixed it in Unreal, and then I was like, how could that work? And I kind of went in here and I said, that's why it's happening. Anyways, so long story short, we need to get these animations to line up because clearly they're not lining up, and that's just a good flag in the future that before we import them, we should do a check of this to make sure that they line up if we're planning on blending them and using them together. So we have two ways that we could solve this. We could fix the animation and then re-import it and do all the changes that we need to in Unreal to fix that, or and this is the sort of quick fix that you saw that I applied before, we could just change the X, Y, and Z values of those animations on import to compensate for that. So that's what I did. I think you could do it one of two ways. I chose to do minus 60 on these two animations and then leave this guy alone. Or I think alternatively, you could probably put a plus 60 on this guy import. Let's try that and see what happens. I have a feeling it may not work. It may give us a different behavior, but let's just see. So if we re-imported the stand to sit with a plus 60 on the Y, and obviously the reason we're choosing the Y is because if you relate it back to our Blender, the Y is this direction. So the animation was out on the Y axis. So anyways, 60, re-import, save, and then let's just see, does that fix our problem out of the gate? No, it's still, instead what it's doing is it's having everything be out. So don't like that. So let's change this back to 0, re-import animation, save, and then instead we'll go into these and we'll re-import with a negative 60 value on the Y axis. Re-import, save, sit to stand, and then sitting idle. Minus 60 on the Y. Re-import, and again, where I came up with minus 60 was really I put in minus 10, minus 20, minus 30, and just saw it was kind of moving in the right direction, and then went too far with minus 70 and landed on minus 60. Felt about right, and so there you go. We did it. We did it. We've got a character that moves around, jumps, does all this stuff in Miximo, or it got him from Miximo, does all this stuff from Miximo, and he's working. There's obviously some things that we could tweak. You remember that the cloth didn't come in perfect for me. Maybe it did come in better for you. So there's opportunity to tweak that. We could do that with some re-importing, playing around with that, or looking at the mesh and messing around with that. But I'm not going to do that in this tutorial. And to be honest, I haven't quite figured that out yet. So if I do, maybe I'll come back. What else? Yeah, his animation isn't super clean, so maybe in a future tutorial, when I get to that point, I'll come back and do one on the animation. But yeah, it's cool. We've got we were able to get Eric to work. We were able to get this guy to work, and learned a little bit about the route and retargeting. I guess that was the other piece. Not to ramble on here. The other piece that we were going to cover, that I mentioned we could cover, was taking Miximo animations and getting them onto the Unreal skeleton. So what I'll do is I'll definitely fire up a part 3 at some point, and then I'll go into how that works. And we'll use, if you recall, earlier in the tutorial, we downloaded a Unreal mannequin without the root bone, and that allows us to get animations from Miximo and then get them over to our Unreal skeleton pretty easy. So maybe I'll create a third tutorial with covering all of these things together, and we'll go from there. So thanks for sticking along. That was a lot of info, and I hope I made your life easier. That's the intent. There's two things I'm trying to do: make other people's lives easier, and two, I'm trying to lock this information in my brain by sharing it and going through it in these tutorials. So I'm learning a lot by doing these tutorials. So anyways, appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time.